When I first became interested in working out, I was 16. I actually begged my parents for a bench and a bar, and that's how it started. And my interest was just getting bigger and getting stronger. It was the first time in my life where I felt like I had some control of my life, and that's one of the things that I've always appreciated about fitness. Through my efforts, I could see results. But with that being said, yeah, I've definitely had some hurdles. Probably the biggest one was a car accident that I got into. I was in my mid 20s. I had already been competing in bodybuilding shows, and to have that stripped away from me, it left me feeling like I didn't have an identity and like I didn't know who I was. Working out was my cornerstone, it was my foundation. And so to have my foundation ripped out from under me, that was the reason why I immediately went back to the gym. And I went back to the gym still with casts on both my arms. I had a walker. Everything else in my life was a mess. But I knew that if I went in there and if I worked hard and if I pushed past it all, that I could do something that was productive that would put me back on track. And so that's what I did. To get back to even where I was seemed like so out of my reach that all I could do was just focus on that day. And it actually taught me an invaluable lesson, which is we all get so hung up on the destination. And it's so easy for us to get demotivated because we don't see progress fast enough. And in that situation, it would have been really easy for me to just feel deflated. I had no idea when I would just even look normal or be able to walk normal again, where people would look at me and just see me as a normal guy, not some guy who is broken. I learned through that that's how you attack things, is just one piece at a time, one day at a time. And in that case, it was one workout at a time. I started training the old school way. I trained with free weights, with dumbbells and bars. It just is cool to pick up heavy stuff and to feel strong. And so I was addicted to that, and that's how I trained for a long time. The one thing that car accident probably changed for me is that it forced me to be a little bit smarter, because you can train that way and it's cool to lift heavy and it's awesome and it's a great feeling picking up heavy stuff. It's just like it brings out our inner caveman, but it's somewhat counterproductive. I've seen a lot of guys that were big and they were strong. Matter of fact, some of the biggest and strongest guys in the world, and then fast forward and they're broken and they look like crap because it just beat them to death. I looked at that and I thought, what's the point? I don't want to just look good, feel good now. I want to do this forever. It wasn't just mindlessly picking up heavy weight. And that's what you're told. You're told just train heavier. You want to get bigger, pick up heavier weight. You want to get stronger, pick up heavier weight. And that's not the way. It's not the way. And especially if you're trying to build and shape your physique, it's different than powerlifting. Powerlifting, yeah, if you want to get stronger and you want to pick up heavier weight, then yeah, you got to pick up heavier weight. But to build and sculpt your body, it's different. And it requires, more mind-muscle connection and learning how to tune into your body and learning how to isolate muscles in order to shape your physique a certain way. And so I became more thoughtful at that point, and it really just changed my whole approach. About 2009, I was introduced to strength bands or resistance bands. At the time, the perception with resistance bands is they were for rehab. You saw old people using them, you saw injured people using them, but that was kind of the perception. Or, hey, you can travel. You can't get to the gym, okay, this is some sort of substitute. It's not as good as going to the gym, but it's better than nothing. And that was the general attitude about bands. But within the powerlifting community, they already knew better. They knew about variable resistance training, which is why powerlifters use chains. So you do squats or you do bench press and you attach chains, and the more you lift it off the ground, the more you pick those chains off the ground, the heavier it gets. And so at the bottom of a range of motion like a squat, you're weaker. At the top, you're stronger. So using chains, the more you pick them up, the more weight that you're picking up off the ground. That's variable resistance. Well, you can do the exact same thing with bands. So there were some really cool studies that were done on resistance band training with free weights in combination with resistance bands. And I thought, this is cool. This is where it's at. So I started using resistance bands with free weights. And I got stronger than I'd ever been. And I felt great. And the more I used them, I would think in the back of my mind, I wonder if you could use these without weights. I wonder if it would be just as effective. I wonder if I could completely ditch the weights and still be able to build muscle. And the more I used them through the years, the more I thought that was the case. But truthfully, I was just too scared to change. I had trained a certain way for so long. And when you do something a certain way and you know that you can get a certain result, like I knew I could go into the gym, I knew how to train, and I knew how to eat to get a certain result. I did it for bodybuilding shows, I did it for magazine covers or for training videos that I did. I knew how to get in shape. And so to take everything that you know that works and to abandon that and take the risk and try something, like for me to leave the gym was a scary thing. And so I always thought about it for years and years and years. And it wasn't until later on where in business, I just was so busy and time became this precious commodity for me. I mean, they say it's the most precious thing there is time, and it's true. So I had 2 kids, a wife, a business, and when I was single, I used to train in the morning before work or train after work. But if you leave work at 5, you drive to the gym, it takes you a half hour. Now it's 5:30. I used to work out for an hour and a half. So you're done with your workout at 7. You drive home, that's 7:30. You got kids, you're putting them to bed at 8:30. So now all of a sudden I was sacrificing something that was my highest priority, which is my family, for something that still was a priority to me, which was my fitness. Fitness has always been a priority. I've always loved working out, and I'm never ever going to sacrifice it. But now I'm in this position where I'm having to choose between 2 things that are important. Well, my family's clearly going to win. So what do? And that's where I found myself using bands more and more. I would get out of the gym. And one of the cool things that happened was, and it was something I didn't even really think about before, but it was the freedom that I felt. I didn't realize how locked down I felt in the gym, that my world revolved around the gym. It wasn't like the gym was integrated into the rest of my life. My life revolved around fitness. And I was just at a point where that couldn't be that way anymore. Like, it wasn't my number one priority. When I was single, I could be selfish like that. It could be the most important thing, but it wasn't anymore. But it was still really important to me. So how do you do all those things? And so that's where I started using bands. But I ended up outside and realized, man, this feels awesome. Like, I love being outside. I hate being stuck indoors. I'm stuck indoors all day long. It's like you wake up in your house, which is like a big box. I mean, no matter how nice a house you live in, it's a box. It's 4 walls and a ceiling. And then you get in your car, which is a little box, and you drive to your office, which is a box, and you leave there and you go to the gym, which is a box. And I just felt claustrophobic. I felt like I was stuck indoors all the time, and I miss being outside, and I'm an outdoor person. I like hiking, and I like mountain biking, and I like being on the beach. And so to be able to go out in the morning, go work out, whether it's in my backyard or the beach, or to do it on my lunch break, and to just be able to work out anytime or anywhere I wanted, it was like freedom. To be able to train and still get the same results that I expected, that I demanded of myself. Like, I didn't want to sacrifice that, and I wasn't willing to say, okay, I'm going to train with bands now, so I'm going to accept a substandard physique. I'm going to compromise. No, I didn't want to compromise. And so it was this opportunity to really put that to the test. And so that was over a year ago. I stopped going to the gym completely. And even if I did walk into a gym with access to all the equipment, all the weights, I was still only using bands. And I wanted to only use bands. It got to that point where I didn't even want to use any of that stuff because I felt better. I felt better contractions. I like the way I feel. I like the way my muscle contracts when I use bands. I didn't have the injury. And it just got to the point where I'm like, I don't need to be in the gym. It was a really, really pivotal moment for me because for the first time I was able to create balance, better balance. I was able to have all the things that were priorities to me, my family, my fitness, my career, and I was able to manage all that. And I didn't feel like I was having to sacrifice one for the other anymore. So I started creating content. I wanted to share this with people. I'm like, hey, this is working for me. This is cool. So I started doing videos and putting them out on YouTube. And people started hitting me up and saying, well, hey, do you have more workouts? Hey, what bands do you recommend? And, I don't know anything about these companies. I was randomly buying different bands from different companies and just piecing together workouts on my own because there weren't a lot of really complete programs. Actually, there weren't really any good programs at all. There weren't even a lot of really good exercise. You go online and you'd find maybe a couple different exercises for each body part. So whatever movements I would do in the gym, I would mimic those with bands and I would just experiment until I found that right angle. I wanted to duplicate what I was doing in the gym, but outside the gym. So I took what I knew, which was a muscle building split, and where you break it down by body part and then breaking it down into multiple exercises and multiple sets. So I just had to go in and experiment. I had to take the bands and try different angles and different anchor points and just find out what worked. And so over the course of a year of just playing around and experimenting and training, I put together a program. And that ended up being TA2, the muscle building program, which is exactly the way I've been training. And so it's been a year now, over a year, with no gym. No gym, no weights. I feel great. I have no injuries. I feel just as strong. I know I could go in the gym and pick up the exact same weights that I would have a year and a half ago. People say you can't build muscle with bands. Man, there's all these skeptics out there. And I love when people tell me that you can't. I mean, that's the motivation for me. That's the fuel for me. So that's the challenge. It's a living, breathing experiment of taking just bands, no gym, and going out there and building the best physique that I've ever had.